Good morning and welcome to Batters Up here on the Sports Insanity Network. It's the official return of me, Mark Oldof's guy Halpern, to the network at full pace. I'm glad to be back. One thing for my friends in Ossining who I know are watching because I told them all, got to get over to Richie's Kitchen, man. The greatest food in Ossining I've had yet. The Cubano with the Yoka fries. Oh my God. Okay. Now on to batters up. Here we go, Mike. We're getting closer. It's baseball. Over to Mike, the Pun Master Rifkin.
We are getting closer. We are actually not that far away from the opening series that'll take place in Tokyo between the Cubs and the Dodgers. A lot of Japanese flavor in that series. But again, we've previewed the Wests, we've previewed the Centrals. I should say this again today as we're going to preview both the American League and National League East. We are not making predictions this week. But over the next 2 weeks after this episode, we will preview each league individually, and there we will have awards predictions, division predictions, and eventually who will be hoisting up the World Series trophy. But as I said, it's all about the East today. We do have some news out of the West. The Oakland A's of Sacramento of Las Vegas have extended outfielder Lawrence Butler to a 7-year contract worth about 65 million bucks. So look at the A's spending some money.
It, Lawrence Butler, we're going to move on pretty fast.
Really good year last year.
Had a great year last year, and this is a good investment. It's not an overpay. This keeps him it keeps him on the team for a little bit better than $8 million a year. That's respectable, and that's an investment in a player.
Yeah. So the A's, they locked him up. They locked up Brett Rooker. So the next phase of the Oakland A's, or I'm sorry, Oakland, Sacramento A's of Vegas, because they're going to transform into Vegas, looks like it's coming into fruition. So we also have other news in the East, and it's not good news for myself and the old ops guy. Do you want to dive into the news, or do you want to wait till we cover the Mets?
No, might as well. We're here. Well, we're
All
talking
right.
about
According to the one and only Steve Gelbs,
it. Yep.
SNY, Mets catcher Francisco Alvarez will have surgery to repair a broken left hamate bone, according to Carlos Mendoza, tomorrow. And he's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks.
This is disappointing because yet again, he was off to an amazing spring. However, 6 to 8 weeks, we all know is 6 to 8 weeks just for the injury. Then you're going to need a revamp up. So you're now looking at not having your starting catcher for the first good 2.5 months of baseball. So the question becomes, what do the Mets do? Well, they can go make trades, they can go do this. No, they have a product in their farm system, and I know I've been criticized about bringing him up early. Bring up Kevin Pareda. He doesn't have to be the starter. You have somebody who can do that. Let the kid play. It's the beginning of the season. The worst thing is, God forbid, he gets injured or he makes it till Francisco Alvarez gets back and then he goes back down, or stays if he's productive.
And then Luis Torrens becomes the odd man out.
Yes.
I'm just looking up
I mean, I know it's a
if
reach.
there's anybody still out there.
I mean, there could be somebody absolutely perfect right now, and I wouldn't know it because I'm not looking at that. I'm thinking internally. Um,
I mean, according to MLB.com, Yasmani Grandal is still available.
and
Not
if they're not going to overpay for his service, he's a veteran. He knows how to play the position. I mean, his bat isn't what it used to be, but I take it. He's a good defensive catcher.
former Met legend James McCann is on the market.
Isn't he like 50 years old?
James McCann is 35.
Oh, okay.
37-year-old Jan Gomes.
2 years ago, maybe. No.
Uh, and that's about it.
Yeah. So Grandal would be the smartest move. But if the Mets were going to do it internally, that's the way I do it.
Yeah. I, listen, I don't know if Parade is not ready, he's not ready. I can't sit here and force him in. So if it's Grandal, great. I don't think they want to try the James McCann experiment again. I would take Jan Gomes. I think he'd probably be the cheapest of the three. And you know he's going to call a decent game because he's always been known as a defensive catcher. But look, this is a tough blow in spring training. I called Francisco Alvarez coming into this year the X factor in this lineup.
And now again, we're going to miss him for a really long extended time.
Yeah, they're going to miss him. So now the X factor in this lineup changes again, and it's the other guy who we all thought would be an X factor, and it's Jeff McNeil.
But let's not rule out the guy who's really had the spring training of spring training. That's Brett Beatty.
But Brett Beatty's
And
not playing catcher.
no, Brett Beatty's not playing catcher. But neither is Jeff McNeil. So I'm just saying, let's not forget about this. Beatty's going to come up. He's not going to start at third or start at DH, but off the bench, here and there start, as long as they keep getting him at bats, he's looking good. So it's a nice to see.
It's very interesting what they're going to do with some of these younger guys. But again, dive into the Mets in a little bit. You want to start American League? You want to start National League?
We'll go American League, National League better this year.
All right. As we've done in the weeks past, we'll start it from the last place team and then we'll work our way up. And the last place team in the 2024 American League East, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Which is funny enough to say in and of itself.
And I think it's fair to say they were the biggest disappointment last year of any team in baseball. They did make a ton of moves this winter. The biggest one being Anthony Santander, who comes over from the Orioles. They also bring Jeff Hoffman from Philly. Yimi Garcia re-signed. That'll help the bullpen along with Hoffman. Max Scherzer signed a one-year deal. And then they got better defensively. Andres Jimenez comes over from Cleveland, as does Miles Straw. But the big question on everyone's mind is, what's going on with Vlad?
Yeah. We know that his contract's up. He's going to be a free agent. We do know that his asked number was below Juan Soto. And
it was below 600.
Right. And even for a team like Toronto, that's a lot of money. and Toronto was said to be in on Shohei. Toronto doesn't have $785 million to commit, let alone even if it's deferred money. Let's say Vlad does. I think either way, I mean, unless they're obviously cruising, if come trade deadline, Vladimir Guerrero is your number one person there.
If they're out of it, I'm very curious to see what the market's going to look like for them. But I think they're going to have to take one last run near the deadline and go, this is it. And if you can't come to terms, you can't let him leave for nothing.
Right. You have
And,
to get something.
but here's the thing: they've done this to themselves. We can sit there and say, "Oh, that's a lot of money," or whatever. It's not our money.
Right.
When it comes to owners, those are millionaires and billionaires who have all this money to spend. If you want to be frugal and keep the money in your pocket, that's up to you. Whether you want to own a sports team or not, again, up to you. But to lose the face of your franchise on a team that let's be real honest, you're the only show in Canada. There's no more expos. There's no other Canadian baseball team. So you have an entire country watching you. And you're gonna let your face of the franchise go. Yeah, and look, this is not a knock, but you're okay with spending 15 million bucks on ancient Max Scherzer.
Right.
And look, I get it. It's a need. Starting pitching is a need. Max Scherzer hasn't been Max Scherzer in 4 years. Now you're just signing a guy for the fact of, oh, when he pitches, we could sell tickets.
That's that's what the Blue Jays are looking for. Is they have to have money coming in because the organization as an ownership doesn't have a lot of money. So you bring in a Santander, which I'm sorry, was one of the bigger moves of spring training, and kind of surprised this is where he chose to go. Um, you bring in a Max Scherzer. It's going to put some butts in seats. Whether it's upper deck or what, it's still money coming in either way. And that's what Toronto needs. And I think Toronto needs the fans that want Vladimir Guerrero to stay, to show up and show the support for him, to give not only him a reason to stay, may become a little more reasonable, but also to show this organization they want him to be the face of that organization.
And look, Santander had a good year in Baltimore. Him hitting behind Vlad will help him for sure. The other thing is going to be this: can Bo Bichette stay healthy? And then, look, I love this rotation, even with the addition of Scherzer, even though I make fun of his age. Max Scherzer's not your ace.
No,
Kevin Gosman's your ace. Jose Barrios is your number two. If he's right, Alek Manoah fits in perfectly as your three. Then you get into the back end with Scherzer.
and then you still have Chris Bassett.
Right. And then you got Bassett. So now, hold on. I may even put Scherzer down to 5 if I have.
Right.
Like, and I'll take Max Scherzer over a lot of number 5 starters. The X factor is Manoah. If he can regain that form of 3 years ago, this team can actually win the American League East. And it sounds weird saying that after they finished in last place, but they have the talent. But they have that black cloud looming over them in what happens with Vlad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be frustrating for Blue Jays fans everywhere, especially after the Leafs lose in the first round again in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Now that's that hockey thing.
That's the hockey thing. Yeah. So again, we are not making predictions on this show. That'll become over the next couple of weeks. All right, fourth place, the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, they also made some additions this winter. They finished with a record of 80 and 82. In a year where you wouldn't think the Rays were 500, they were basically 500.
Yeah.
They added Ha-Seong Kim, Danny Jansen, and Eloy Jimenez. And here's the other thing that the Rays are doing. They're getting their pitching back that was all out last year. Shane McClanahan's back. He's going to start opening day.
Yes.
That's going to be massive for them. The one bad thing I'll say about the Rays, they always find a way to be competitive. They just don't have a home park this year. They're going to play at George Steinbrenner Field.
And I understand limitations. Limitations are what they are, and finding a field is not easy. But it's kind of like the biggest diss in the world that the Tampa Bay Rays are playing at the Yankees home park. That's all. That's just me. I find that as a morale, cutter.
Yeah, I just wonder how far is your own spring training complex that you couldn't play there? But
It's just, I mean, grateful they have a good park to play in. I mean, the park's a nice park, but you're at least going to guarantee one thing. The normal amount of Tampa Bay Rays fans that actually show up to a game will actually fill this park.
yeah, it's going to remain a question mark, especially with Rays fans. But look, they have one of the best managers in the game, Kevin Cash. If they could stay healthy, their pitching could be electric.
Mm-hmm.
And look, they they don't have a superstar, but they find ways.
They do have a very big up and comer in his sophomore year in Junior Caminero at third. He had a very not as big as a rookie season as predicted, but this kid is a star in the building.
Yeah, look, if they can find ways to score runs, and by the way, if Eloy Jimenez can figure it out,
Yes.
that's light tower power for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something this lineup just doesn't have a ton of. But with their pitching, they don't have to score a ton of runs. But again, can the pitching stay healthy? They do business unlike anybody else. And they find ways to make it work. So shout out the Rays. Third place, Bill Murphy's favorite team, the Boston Red Sox. They were also busy signing Alex Bregman, acquiring Garrett Crochet, Walker Bueller, Patrick Sandoval, and Aroldis Chapman.
The guy who won't go away. I mean, finds ways to stay in the league. I mean, how do you ignore a 98-mile-an-hour fastball?
I mean, he is. We thought when he got arrested for domestic violence that was the end, but
Correct.
But look, this was a Red Sox team last year that stayed competitive until September.
Mm-hmm.
And, their lack of pitching depth and some injuries kind of hurt them and they faded at the end. But what'd they do this winter? They took some flyers. Walker Bueller's a flyer. As much as I love the guy, he's a flyer just based on the injury history. Patrick Sandoval back into the rotation, kind of a flyer guy. But then they did what they did a couple of years ago when they made the Chris Sale deal. Left-handed starter, Chicago White Sox. Let's unload a little bit of this farm for Garrett Crochet.
I
And
think Everybody wanted him. I mean, one of the prime pitchers in on the market,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and Boston won it.
And you top that off with what they've already got. And then you look at this lineup. You had Alex Bregman. I'm on record. Rafael Devers is going to win an MVP at some point. I think he's that good. Trevor Story fully healthy.
Hmm.
Jared Duran at the top. There hasn't been a better Duran since Elvis Duran.
Mm.
You know,
The
it's
morning
just,
zoo.
you know, the young players came through for them last year, and that allowed them to spend money this offseason. In
Yeah.
the fact of, we believe in this group, so we're going to add to it. So they caught a lot of flack, but I give the Red Sox some credit here. They did do a good job this winter.
You also had the sophomore, I'm gonna butcher his name, but Sedane Rafaela had a great year
Yep,
last year.
speedster.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I'm waiting. I think this is the year that Yoshida breaks out. I think he's been in the league 2 years. If it's not gonna happen now, it's not gonna happen at all. He's had 2 years to adjust, and the 2 years he's been here, he's produced. He's not been a negative person, but we haven't seen the numbers he was expected to produce. So I think this year is that year.
I think it's interesting. What he has to be for the Red Sox is what Seiya Suzuki has to be for the Cubs.
Fair, very fair.
Um, Look, Tristan Casas, if he could stay healthy, that's your first baseman. Um, I'm with you on Raphael because he gives you something. Him and Duran give you something that I don't think a lot of teams have, and that's dynamic speed. And if you're gonna hit one, Duran probably hits leadoff, and you hit Raphael in ninth. Like that's a 1-2 punch we haven't seen in a long time from the Red Sox, probably since Jacoby Ellsbury first debuted for them. So,
Mm.
and that listen, I gotta say this. They're also led by one of the better managers. Again, Alex Cora's done a fantastic job. Bang the trash cans all you want, Boston. All right, second place last year. Baltimore Orioles, 91-71. They brought in Tyler O'Neill, Tomoyuki Sugano, Mets and Yankee legend Gary Sanchez,
Hmm.
Andrew Kitteridge, and Dylan Carlson is what the Orioles did this offseason.
Yeah, that's what they brought in. It's what they let go
Yep.
is my biggest problem. I don't care if the guy wanted the moon and back. He was the he was the pitcher of pitchers for this team. He was lights out almost every start. Of course, every pitcher can't be perfect every game. But they let go of Corbin Burns to the Arizona Diamondbacks, which
Mm-hmm.
just truly makes no sense.
And not only did they lose Corbin Burns, but it's reported now that Grayson Rodriguez is going to start the year on the injured list.
Yep.
That is major. And look, here's where I'm disappointed in the Baltimore Orioles. You have this young core: Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holiday. The list goes on and on. I don't give a damn about your prospects at this point because I have young players. I don't care who Gunnar Henderson is blocking off. I don't care who Jackson Holiday could be blocking off. You could trade those guys for an ace in the hole. Why were you not willing to do it for Garrett Crochet? Why are you not willing to pull the trigger and bring back Corbin Burns? What separated you from the Yankees last year by 3 games? What separated you? The Yankees had a guy in Garrett Cole. You had a guy in Corbin Burns, and you let that guy go. Now who's your guy? Like, and you want to hug these freaking prospects. And I'm sorry. They can be great players. You already have young talent. A lot of these prospects might not see time at some point because they're blocked off. So take them, shine them up real nice, and send them elsewhere to bring in starting pitching to help your team.
You can't expect Zach Eflin to be Corbin Burns. Charlie Morton is not Corbin Burns, and neither is Dean Kremer, and as Mike mentioned, Tomoyuki Sagano. This was a
Go
sorry.
ahead.
This was a this guy when Corbin Burns was slated to start, you knew a couple of things. You got 6 innings and 10 strikeouts right there. Bless you. And yeah, the moment you figure Corbin Burns, Anthony Santander wasn't far behind. Are we about to see the dismantle of this possible great Baltimore team because they can't keep star players? So, I mean,
Look, you can't pay everyone. So I get you letting go of Santander. Although he gave you every opportunity he could to stay.
oh, yes.
You have a choice in life as a baseball team to be really good, to not care, or to be really bad. The Baltimore Orioles a couple of years ago were a really good feel good story with this young team. Last year, they disappointed us because they faded and they never added when they should have added because the Yankees were down with injuries.
Right.
And then at the trade deadline, the best thing you could freaking do was Trevor freaking Rogers. And then this winter, all we said was go get a guy, whether it's bringing back Corbin Burns or make the trade for Crochet or whatever it is. Do it. Make it better for you. And you sat on your hands and you did nothing. Meanwhile, I can sit here and make the case that going into this season, the Boston Red Sox are now better than you. The Toronto Blue Jays are now better than you.
Yep.
And you know what you did? You've ruined your nucleus. Oh, they also brought in Charlie Morton. I'm sorry. They also brought in Charlie Morton. Ageless wonder, Charlie Morton. That's really the save your freaking rotation. You got to be better, Baltimore. And you got a new freaking owner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did the article for the website a while ago, disappointments of the offseason. The Baltimore Orioles, you are on that list. And to quote
And
the
for
great
good
Chris
reason.
Jericho, you just made the list again. Shout out the GOAT, Chris Jericho. All right. And then the winners of the American League East were the New York Yankees. Their offseason were as followed. They brought in Max Fried, Cody Bellinger, Devin Williams, Paul Goldschmidt. All this to combat the loss of Juan Soto, who went somewhere else that will be mentioned later. But Mark, the Yankees have their own problems right now.
And yet again, it's not a cold day in New York. Garrett Cole, for the second straight season, is getting second opinions on his right elbow, his pitching elbow. And reports are already in that it's possible that he will miss the entire season. It
Right.
is
We are
no
waiting on news of that.
right. There is no confirmation on it, but
He might need Tommy John. We don't know.
right. And it's looking more that way. And as it was last year, I mean, he did come back and pitch through it. I mean, got to give the guy credit there. Um, Now Marcus Stroman becomes a huge thing. DJ LeMay no has left the lineup now.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think this guy's started a season since signing his contract. This guy is more injury prone, and another player who is currently out. How about the perennial Giancarlo Stanton, who will now start the season on the IL?
And by the way, if that rehab doesn't go well and he needs surgery, he's done for the year. He's already said that.
And so the Yankees were just dealt basically their starting pitcher, their ace pitcher, their fifth or third batter in the lineup, their leadoff man and second baseman.
And by the way, Luis Heel,
Right. And not to add injury to insult, Luis Hill is now mentioned to miss the first 2 to 3
3
months.
months. He's not thrown for 6 weeks with a lat injury.
Right. This Yankees team is in trouble. And
Yeah.
again, now it all comes down to, unfortunately, the weight of this team is on Aaron Judge. Yes, we've seen a nice spring from Cody Bellinger. I mean, it was nice to see Paulie Goldschmidt hit one the other day. It's not enough. I'm sorry.
You are banking. Let me get to the lineup and then I'll get into the pitch. You're banking on this lineup because here's the thing without Giancarlo Stanton and in the absence of Soda, guess what I'm doing every time Aaron Judge comes to the plate?
You got it.
I'm
The
walking
Barry
him.
Bonds effect takes effect.
I'm not pitching to him. He's not beating me. I'm going to make Austin Wells, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt. Those guys have to beat me. And I don't know if those guys are going to beat me. And if they beat me, tip your cap to them. But without Stanton, I'm not pitching the Judge. And that's why Judge is I'm not going to say his numbers are going to be down. But I don't think he's going to have the year he had because of the protection lack thereof in the lineup, unless Bellinger, Goldschmidt, Wells, whoever it is, step up and go. You know what? This is how good I feel. Now I have to pitch to Aaron Judge,
Mm-hmm.
but
I
I'm not
mean,
buying that.
we're seeing the first real year of Jason Dominguez. He's had a
Yeah,
good spring, but this is his first real year. Ben Rice, we don't know what he really is. He really didn't have much of a, uh, you know,
well, this
be,
is where the Stanton injury is going to help you because now you can implore Rice at first base and DH Goldschmidt a couple of times a week.
right. But you're going to be relying on Anthony Volpe,
Yeah,
Oswaldo Cabrera.
yeah.
These young guys
And
are going to become the priority. And, luckily they got Jazz Chisholm Jr. last year.
right, and he'll play second base. You got to figure out who's at third base. You mentioned the LeMahieu injury,
Mhm.
so that's a problem for you. Here's the real issue, and then I'm going to get. This is a team that's gotten old, and they're trying to. Now is an opportunity for the young guys to step up. The problem is we don't know what they have because you've never trusted them in big spots before. Like Austin Wells should not be. I don't know if Austin Wells is a real cleanup hitter, but he's going to have to hit cleanup for you now, or in the 5 hole. Oswaldo Cabrera, he's probably your third baseman now because you didn't want to sign Bregman or you didn't want to trade for Nolan Arenado. You better hope the Bellinger thing works. Now, you didn't
Right.
give up a whole lot for him, but still, you need him to perform. And then let's get to the rotation. If Garrett Cole is down for a significant amount of time, who does that put more pressure on? Well, Max Fried just signed for 8 years and 230, so he's going to have to be great. Guess what? He's got an injury history. He was hurt a lot last year for the Braves. Carlos Rodon, inconsistent, not great. We mentioned Luis Heel. Well, guess what? Marcus Stroman is still around, thankfully, but he didn't have a great year. Clark Schmidt, I think, is battling something too. So now all of a sudden, the New York Yankees, who had this rotation we thought was going to be unbelievable, well, it's back down. It's down to earth here. And again, we don't know when Heel and Cole and Stanton are coming back because there's a chance, especially with Cole and Stanton, you may not get them back.
And that's the biggest key because they're not rookies here. These guys are
30
veterans,
plus.
and you don't know if Garrett Cole is down because of Tommy John surgery now. Count out obviously 2025, but most of 2026.
Well, also, here's the other thing about Cole if he goes down. Cole is, I want to say he's 35 or 36. I think he's in that ballpark. If Cole goes down with Tommy John, forget just this year, we don't know how he reacts at 36 or 37 now off of Tommy John.
Right.
Remember, Masahiro Tanaka had the partially torn UCL too, but the difference on Tanaka was Tanaka didn't rely on the velocity. Tanaka was 92 to 94, and then he had that great split finger.
Right.
Garrett Cole is 94 to 97 with a wipeout slider, decent changeup, and a curveball. So we're going to have to see what happens there. But the Yankees are going through it injury wise. So that's the American League East. Let's dive into the National League East. We started at the bottom, and at the bottom, we reel in the Miami Marlins.
The poor
60,
fishies.
62 and 100. And the big name they brought in this offseason, Cal Quantrill. But there's been talk, Mark,
Yeah.
from JP Morosi of MLB Network. Sandy Alcantara at some point could be on the move.
And I mean, when you look at this entire Marlins roster, everybody's been wondering what his recovery has been like since he went down for the Tommy John. I mean, I've only seen images of him pitching. I've had no real news, but the only thing that seems to be consistent is that his recovery is going as expected. So, I mean, that's good news for anybody who is considering a possible high-end prospect in the organization for a pitcher who, yes, was an ace, went down with the Tommy John surgery. We know players have had success with it. So could Alcantara be on the move? And we've seen the Marlins make a deal with the New York Mets for a certain catcher a long time ago. Could
The
there
pizza man.
could there be a little Alcantara music coming Don't know though. You got to see what he's like pitching.
Yeah. And look, the Marlins, they are a long ways away from contending. So see how some of those young players perform. Alcantara can net you something nice at the deadline. So I still think he's got a couple of years left to control too. So
Right.
that'll benefit them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So and again, I think they played the Mets the other night in spring training, and I think Steve Gelb said there was one guy in the lineup over the age of 30, and it was Albert Almora Jr.,
Yeah.
who probably won't make the team, but
Right. And
shout out to you.
this is not
This is typical
untypical of
Marlins.
Yeah, it's Marlins world. That's what it is.
Bring back Hanley Ramirez. Talk
Bring
about
back
player.
the original Mickey.
Oh, shout out Miggy. All right, fourth place. Shout out Patch. Washington Nationals finished at 71 and 91. I'm saying this now. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I'm bumping that win total up.
Oh yes.
This is a talented team. They brought in Nathaniel Lowe, Mike Soroka, Josh Bell, Trevor Williams re-signed, Paul DeYoung, Kyle Finnegan re-signed, Met legend Ahmed Rosario. I just typed this name out because I wanted to pronounce it. Shinsuke Ogasawara.
Yeah,
And
nice.
Lucas Sims.
Yeah, I ain't gonna say that name because I'm gonna butcher it every time it comes up anyway.
Mark, this is a team. The guy we're all waiting for, though, Dylan Cruz.
Which, mind you, the dugout of Millwood does have his rookie card numbered 2 of 10 autograph, graded 10 out of 10. So please don't forget to hit up the dugout for that card. But it's not just Dylan Cruz, it's James Woods as well.
The actor, James Woods. Yes.
Yes, the great actor, James Woods, who watched his poor house burn, had to result to coming back and playing baseball. No, that was not funny. It was just how it landed. This is a young team that has been built over the last few years with Kyber Ruiz, Mackenzie Gore. Now you have Josh Bell, who's been a talented player over the last
By the
few
way,
years.
Josh Bell was there at one point. So
yeah, I mean, and now you add the young Dylan Cruz, who this kid has more excitement behind him than any rookie I've seen in a long time, including Shohei Ohtani. The only difference is this kid doesn't pitch. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this team can do. I'm not saying they're going to win 90, 100 games here because the pitching staff isn't there, but they have a good shot at about 78, 79 wins.
You don't think the pitching staff's there? They got Josiah Grace coming back.
Yes.
He's got electric stuff. They got who was the kid that they got in the San Diego deal who they really who
Trevor Williams.
No.
Soroka?
Hold on. I'm going to look this up because
I'm running out of names.
Yeah.
It's going to be the one name I didn't say.
Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore is a guy that, had his moments last year. I'm not going to sit there and say they don't have the staff because I think they do. They just have to take that next step forward. Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray's a nice 1-2. We saw some of their younger guys come in last year, guys like DJ Hers, Jake Irvin, Mitch Parker. Oh, they signed Met legend Jorge Lopez too.
If you let this team build.
No, right. I don't think they're a playoff team like you said, but they could get to 500.
Yes. That I don't disagree with.
I think that should be the goal.
if you let this team build and grow and you don't trade any of these big pieces
Yeah.
because they have amazing years. Let's say Dylan Cruz comes out and hits 40 home runs, does the 40-40 club. Don't entertain the world here.
And they
Keep
have a
this
brilliant
team together.
they have a brilliant GM in Mike Rizzo who's done a
Yes.
phenomenal job. So all right. Third place in the National League East. Tied for second if you want to be realistic, but the New York Metropolitans with a record of 89 and 73. Then they beat the Milwaukee Brewers in the wild card series.
Mm.
And they beat the Philadelphia Phillies in the division series before losing to the Dodgers in the NLCS. So what did the Mets do this winter? Very ho-hum. They re-signed Pete Alonso. They signed Clay Holmes. They re-signed Sean Manaea. Brought in Frankie Montas, who's never probably going to pitch. Brought in AJ Minter. Re-up Jesse Winker. Brought in Jose Siri because they want to ask Siri. Brought back Ryan Stanek. Oh, yeah. They signed this guy named Juan Soto, who's had a great spring training as well.
It's Soto good in New York. Let's talk. We've already spoken Francisco Alvarez, so we don't have to recap that. That's obviously one of the bigger losses, not including, like Mike had said, Frankie Montes is now possibly not going to pitch. And Sean Manaea, we know, is going to miss the first 2 to 3 months.
Well, according to David Stearns, Manaea is going for imaging tomorrow. If all goes well, they think he could start throwing right away. They actually expect him back late April to early May.
So, I mean, that's encouraging. The biggest question in the Mets pitching staff is what is the Mets going to get out of Kodai Senga?
Mm-hmm.
And we saw him come back twice only to uh, stumble and fall. I mean,
By the
unfortunately,
way,
that's
those
what
were
it
the most
was.
electric 5 innings, though.
And watching what he's done and listening to the comments, not only from the Mets, coaches and whatnot, but listening to different analysts across the country and what they've had to say, it's encouraging. It's not enough. Clay Holmes is definitely going to be a boost. David Peterson is going to be a boost. You have to figure Taylor McGill is going to be a factor in this lineup, in this rotation, unfortunately. But let's look at this lineup. Now we know what we've done talking Francisco Alvarez. We know the man himself will lead off, and that's Francisco Lindor.
Mm-hmm.
Lindor will repeat as the leadoff. Mike and I have had many a discussion at the second spot. A lot of people do not like my idea of Brandon Nimmo there. I think that's where Brandon Nimmo would be important, especially with his on base percentage and getting to the third spot, whether it be Soto or Alonso.
And I am of the mindset I would keep Vientos at 2. Vientos 2, Soto 3, Pete 4, Nimmo 5. And especially now with Alvarez down, who knows what they want to do. But look, I will say this. To quote the great Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. The New York Mets last year were all about the vibes. Grimace, OMG, to whatever you want. The vibes are gone.
Yes.
That there is no more OMG. No offense to Jose Iglesias, he signed with the Padres. Grimace can throw out the opening day pitch if he wants to at Citi Field. Fine. This team has expectations. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the World Series is the expectation just because of Philly, Atlanta, the Dodgers. But this is damn well a playoff team.
Yes.
And they need to get their heads on straight and get off to a decent start. You can't go from 0-5 to OMGs. Gary Cohen said during game 161 of the regular season, that first game in Atlanta, that doubleheader Monday.
Right. The Mets don't have to go out undefeated either.
No.
They have to just keep pace. And that's the key. Last year was the lack of everything. Vientos wasn't there, didn't come on until later in the season. Everyone just seemed to be until the rest of the season. The difference is this team has a lot more energy than it once did.
And there's a belief, and there's now, I don't want to say there's not a weakness. I think your weakness is you don't have an ace.
Yep. And as much as I love Kodai Senga.
Right. If you get Kodai Senga from 2 years ago, that's good. But look at within your own division for a second. As good as we think Kodai Senga can be or is, he's not Zach Wheeler.
Nope.
He's not Aaron Nola. And he's not Spencer Strider. So that's where you lose me a little bit. But look, David Stearns chose not to go get an ace. He chose not to go after Corbin Burns.
Right.
And maybe that's for something else. I don't know. Trade deadline comes. We brought up the name before. Sandy Alcantara would be a very nice piece. But again, I'm not going to rush myself. But I really like this bullpen.
The bullpen for the Mets has doubled down, so to speak. They had a lot of weak points, and David Stearns and Steve Cohen and the Mets organization got together and said, time to plug up the holes. And they did that very well.
Yep, Ryan Stanek is back. I love the AJ Minter signing.
Yes.
That
I think that
is
was one of the more crucial signings of the Mets.
If they can get another lefty in the bullpen, I'd be very happy. Max Kranick, who's had a really nice spring so far, he might be a low-key option in this bullpen. I'm there on the Mets. All right. Save the rest of Met talk for later, because we got two other teams to get through. This team with the same record as the Mets was the Atlanta Braves. And let's be real honest, the Braves last year, they got decimated by injuries.
And very early, too.
Acuna, Riley, Albies, they all missed time. Yet the Braves still finished 89 and 73. They added Jurickson, Profar, and Brian De La Cruz. Profar did get hurt yesterday.
Yeah.
We do not know the extent of that injury, though.
It's not looking horrible, but it's not looking good either.
And I'm going to see if there is any update on him.
I just looked. I actually just saw it. There is no update yet. He goes for imaging tomorrow.
Oh, boy. And this was a guy
who had a great year last year and has been up and coming over his last few.
Okay, this is from Mark Bowman. Profar CT scan showed a bone bruise. Expectation is he'll be ready for opening day.
Okay, so that's really good news for Profar. I really don't care that it's good news for the Atlanta Braves, but I do like Jurickson Profar.
Well, here's the thing, too, on the Braves. We don't know when we're going to see Ronald Acuna on the field for them.
No.
And we don't know. I don't think Strider's getting the ball to start the year. I think they're I
Currently,
think
there's no word on Strider. I
we
haven't
haven't
seen
heard
much.
anything on that. So, and they've lost Max Fried. They lost Charlie Morton. I mean, Spencer Schwellenbach is really good against the Mets. So take that with that. But look, this team, whether it's the pitching or it's that freaking lineup. I mean, Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olson, Ozuna was an MVP candidate the bulk of the year.
Right.
Oh my! Like, thank God Travis d'Arnaud's no longer there. Talking about a Met killer, and now Sean
And they
Murphy's gonna miss
Murphy,
some
they
time.
just lost for the opening
Yeah,
part of the season.
about 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's an oblique or a rib or something.
I mean, injuries have been on the rise. And not just for the Atlanta Braves, for the entire
Across
league.
baseball.
Yes.
And so we'll see what happens with the Braves. Again, no predictions today. Last team, the team that won the National League East was the Phillies, 95-67 before they lost to the Mets in the
Haha.
divisional round. They brought in Jesus Luzardo, Jordan Romano, Max Kepler, and Joe Ross. I'm going to make a very outlandish statement. You ready?
Go for it.
I don't think there is a team in baseball with more pressure to win this year than the Philadelphia Phillies.
And you're not wrong. When you look at the talent that is not only on the pitching side, but on the offensive side, the lineup side, there is no reason why this team shouldn't be considered World Series bound. I'm sorry to say it like that and put the jinx on the team I hate the most, but between them and the Dodgers, there's no two better teams on paper right now.
And here's the thing, the reason why I say it is this. They went to the World Series in 22 against the Astros and lost. Then 2023, they lose to the Diamondbacks of all teams in the NLCS.
Right.
And then last year, they lose to the Mets in the NLDS. But this is a team that I will put Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola up against any top two pitchers.
Yes.
Last year, Ranger Suarez was phenomenal for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're adding Jesus Luzardo to that. Really good arm. Just hope he can stay healthy. You bring up the lineup. Well, we're going to have Kyle Schwarber lead off. Kyle Schwarber's a demon. Oh,
Yes.
then we get into whoever you want hitting too, but then we get into, Bryce Harper. He's pretty good at this baseball thing. Nick Castellanos had a great year last year.
Yep.
Alec
And
Bohm
then,
was an MVP candidate in the first half, and he couldn't hit a beach ball in the second half.
all right. And then the missing man from the first half, Trey Turner,
Trey,
is back.
Real Muto.
Yep. There
If
is
this
no
team
reason
if
why this team
right,
cannot be.
if this team can't get it done this year, you may have to think about blowing this thing up
Eventually.
and letting a Schwarber's a free agent next year. I may have to let Kyle Schwarber walk because we can't get it done with Kyle Schwarber. Castellanos is a free agent. I may have to let Castellanos walk because we haven't gotten it done. But here's the other thing, for as good as these guys are, they're also another year older.
And deeper in debt.
Right. And you're talking about Wheeler's 34, 35. Harper's getting into his mid 30s. I'm not saying these guys won't be good, but we know the trajectory with guys with age. Father Time is undefeated. Except for one guy in Tom Brady, that's a whole nother conversation. That's why it's on the Phillies. They have to win this year because you don't know what next year brings. Year to year, you do not know. The New York Yankees, the winningest franchise in all of sports, made the World Series last year. First time in 15 years. They're the team that went to the World Series every year. If you think about from 96 to 2001, they're in the World Series. And then they're in again in 03. So the Philadelphia Phillies, look, all I'm going to say is pressure's on or no cheesesteaks or any of yous.
It's it's funny when we were talking about last year, and as we said, predictions wise, we'll do all that next week.
Yep. Next 2 weeks,
But
we got prediction.
the NL East is just as good as the AL East now.
The East are the two best divisions in baseball.
Yes. And it's time that it gets recognized like that.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for the Eastern Division previews of Batter Up here on the Sports Insanity Network, presented by the Dugout of Millwood. Anything on the dugout?
Well, the dugout will be having a couple of very big moments. We will be having our first appearance on the face turn when we have a hat trick break moment with all the great wrestling cards from Top Chrome. And we might even have an all-star couple of moments. So be on the lookout for that on the face turn.
Face turn. Also, listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell thing. Check out the website, thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Follow us on the socials, S Insanity Real, Twitter, Sports Insanity Network on the Facebook. For the old ops guy, I'm the pun master. We'll talk to you all next week when we start predictions on the Major League Baseball season. Godspeed, everyone. We'll talk to you all next week.
Catch you on the flip.